will do.
I had a pastor say this one time: God's created you to be a channel, not a reservoir. But he did say, even the pipes get wet. Come on, somebody. Even the pipes are blessed, right? We're still alive and moving forward in our own life. That's how God works. But there's a process here, and you may gloss over it if you don't just pause and look. There's a process that God's wanting to put in each of us when he invites us into. By the way, God's not a tyrant or a bully. I'll never stand up here and say, you got to. But God doesn't do that. The Bible says and as much as you've been given, people freely give. Like out of the abundance of the heart, right, comes life. The truth of the matter is God's been good to every one of us if we stop and pause. Amen. What does his invitation look like through this story that he repeated over and over again? The first thing we see is God's invitation starts with a need. Write that down. This is exciting. How many of you have a need? Come on. We have a need. You have a need. I know you have a need. I was looking through some of the prayer cards, you know. I came down with strep throat, so I wasn't there. You're welcome. None of y'all have it because I wasn't here. But I was looking through the prayer cards, and I was looking at the needs that everyone has. Needs for wayward sons and daughters to come home. Needs for relationships to be restored. Needs for physical healing. Needs for like dreams of being able to be a blessing to others while overcoming financial hardship and issues. Man, it was absolutely incredible to read those cards and to realize, man, everyone has a need. The church also has a need. Just come hang out next service. We don't have any room for you. But anyways, like there's a need. Here's the point is, every time there's a need, God doesn't say, oh man, that's too big. It actually makes you a candidate for the miracle. Look at the need. This crowd was hungry, right? It was hungry. The next thing we see is God's invitation. It's sensed by his disciples. One of the tests of true discipleship isn't what you take, but it's what you give. Amen. And we have to sense the needs as believers around us. You know, I tell our huddle every week, and we've had some people actually leave our serve team because they think it's kind of mean and they don't like it. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm okay with that. But I'll huddle them up and I'll go around and, how are y'all feeling this morning? And you know, sometimes if it's kind of dreary, it's cold, you know, they'll kind of be like, yeah, I'm tired. This is going on. This person's in the hospital. There's all kinds of, everyone has problems, right? We all have issues we're facing. By the way, you never know what somebody else's problem is. You could walk with a little more empathy and love. You really could. Yeah. And you know, I'm going around the list and I go, okay. Think about the biggest problem in your life. Close your eyes. Let it out. Great. Now I want you to take the biggest problem in your life, and there's a box over here. I want you to open that box. You doing it? You open that box? Open that box. A little visualization. Y'all okay? Open that box. I want you to take that massive problem, and I want you to put it in the box. Then I want you to close the box, and for the next 3 hours, I want you to think about somebody that's not you. I want you to see the people that walk through our door. I want you to completely put it away. You can't change it anyways, right? And I want you to focus on serving others. You know, it's amazing what happens. Here's what happens. When they go back at the end of service, and they've been giving and loving and serving, everyone knows it's more blessed to give than receive. Doesn't matter. Everyone knows that. Everyone who gives knows that. Every parent at Christmas knows that's true. They go back to that box and they open it up, and guess what? That big old nasty problem they put in there, it's a lot smaller than it was when they put it in there. That's how God uses us. It's a huge deal. As disciples, we got to know as disciples of Christ, when we sense a need, we can't go, oh, but I have so much other things going on in my own life. It's when we're able to go, you know what, I do have a lot of that. And you know what, God's big enough for all of it. I'm going to put that aside, and I'm going to seek first. Everyone say first. God's kingdom. I believe that's actually how you can tell a disciple from anyone else. I love Jesus. In another passage where he's telling the exact same story in Mark 6:37, he literally, he looks at his disciples. I love this. He looks at his disciples when they bring this problem to him, and he goes, you give them something to eat. How many times we go, God, remove the mountain? Right? That's like one verse taken out of context, terribly. I don't know about you in your life, but me in my life, God says, no, I'm with you. I'm going to go up that mountain. When we come down, you're going to be stronger because you went up it. That's what this process really is all about. There's all these crowds of people, right? By the way, the ministry caused the problem. Jesus was really good at healing people and got really, really famous, and guess what happened? He caused the crowd. Did you know God causes it? God's the reason. God's the reason. Next thing we see is God's invitation requires faith. I want you to think about Jimmy in verse 8 and 9. We're going to call him Jimmy. I don't know what his name was, but the little boy with the lunch, he's mentioned very lightly. Let's call him Jimmy. There's something we learn from this miracle. You got to get this. You got to get this. There was only one person in that crowd that didn't need a miracle. You know who it was? Jimmy. Jimmy listened to his mom that morning and packed his lunch. Jimmy was completely prepared. Jimmy read his proverb that morning. That's how God works. When everybody does their part, it's how God works. Think about that. That bread and that fish, that's one day's lunch for a teenage Jimmy. I think it was a teenage Jimmy. It's quite a bit of food. You have teenagers, you know what I'm talking about. He was the only one that didn't need a miracle, and yet it was because he offered. The disciples did not take that young boy's lunch. Just like he will not make you obey him. Just like he will not make you do what he tells you to do. He won't do it. You're most blessed when you do it, but he will not force you. He will not twist you. He will not do it. But there's something that happens. Jimmy freely gives what would only feed him for a day to feed others. It's crazy what happens. That's actually the miracle. Think about this for a minute. It requires faith. Many of us, we want God to move in our life without our participation. God doesn't work that way. It's as we're serving, as we're giving, as we're leading, as we're pouring out to this world, that God, the Bible says, continues to provide seed to the sower. That you can't outgive God in any area of your life. Whether it's your time, your abilities, your stuff, God is